you can pay attention for the next 2 or 3 minutes, this might save your life when you're trying to learn casting. A mate of mine from the States, from Montana, is a guy called Bruce Richards. Bruce Richards worked for the Scientific Anglers Flyline Company for 33 years designing lines, and he and a mate invented a casting analyzer that's a gizmo that goes on the end of your rod that studies the speed, the arc and everything else. Anyway, a long story short, he knows more about fly casting than anyone else on this planet. Bruce came up with a thing called the 6-step method of self-analysis. Some way to 6 steps to help you fix your casting faults without paying me, as a casting instructor. Now I guess what this is about really is about the body language of casting, the biomechanics of casting, or the body language of casting. So let's go back to the big loop that the beginner makes. So the first step of Bruce's 6-step method starts in the sky, and you look at the loop shape and understand your loop shape. To a point you can draw it and describe it to me. The next step is to look at the rod tip, so coming down, look at the rod tip path and what path is the rod tip making that causes that particular loop shape. The third thing is to look at your body. What are you doing that causes the rod tip to make the loop shape? Then going back up, step 4 is to change the body language, change whatever you're doing with your hand or your legs or whatever. Then look at the rod tip for confirmation that it's going in a straighter line path through the sky. Then of course look at the loop shape for final confirmation that what you've changed down here has made a difference. So here we go. Describe the loop shape for me. How are we going to describe that loop shape? Wide open loop shape. So now let's describe the rod tip path. What path is the rod tip taking that's making that loop shape? Yeah, dome, yeah, like a rainbow tip path goes up and down like an arc. So now what am I doing? Step 3, what am I doing that's causing the rod tip to go like a damn windscreen wiper on a Volkswagen? Too much wrist, okay. So what could we do about stopping the wrist action? What if I tie this up? And I would never recommend this as a casting instructor. If any casting instructor tells you to do this, you should sack them. But yes, we've got to take the wrist out. So maybe a better way to take the wrist out of the equation might be to fold the Sim's hat in half. And let's put, and I used to use a toilet roll, you can imagine a toilet roll instead of a hat. Let's put the hat here so that if I use my wrist, the hat falls out, okay? So this is just a method to stop me opening my wrist. So let's just check that I can cast without losing the hat. So I can. So step 4, stop the wrist movement. So let's look at the rod tip. Step 5, is the rod tip moving in a straighter line path? Yes, it is. And let's look at the loop for confirmation. Is the loop a narrower loop? Focused energy towards the target? Yes, it is. That's Bruce's 6-step method. So let's do it again. Let's take the wrist out of it, fix that. I want to describe this one. Tell me that's not a big wide open loop. So it's still a dome. So now what's the problem with me? It's not the wrist, because that fixed it last time. So what's the problem? Yeah, there's no elbow. I'm using a straight arm. The pivot now, instead of the pivot being my wrist, the pivot is my shoulder, and it's tiring. So let's karate chop the elbow. Let's get the elbow down. And now my arm is bent, my hand's lower, it's not so high in the sky. The tip path now is straighter, and we're back to a nice loop. So let's keep the elbow bent this time and keep the hat in here, because I'm getting the hang of this. So I want you to describe the loop to me now. There's no wrist in this hand, I've got a bent elbow. But what shape is the loop now? Still a very wide open loop, but it's tilted on the side. It's a horizontal unrolling loop. So the tip is going in an arc sideways now, not up and down like a rainbow. It's like a rainbow that's fallen over. What's my problem? So I'm twisting, aren't I? I'm twisting at the waist. So let's cast by looking straight ahead at the camera without this sort of looking back this way and looking forward this way. Take the body rotation out and the tip moves in a straight line path and the loop is narrow again. So that's Bruce Richards' 6-step method. You can Google it, which would be better than watching me do it, and learn from Bruce himself. Well done.